Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. We are kicking off today's show with some special guests, two of our friends from Ecamm. We've got Glenn Aspaslay. He's the co-founder and co-developer of Ecamm. For those of you who don't know, it's a platform for creators. If you're an entrepreneur or business, you can live stream, record, produce video. It's a very cool software switcher for the Mac. Also, he's kind of known for trying to keep things very powerful but very accessible. And so we're going to learn about some of those new features today. Joining him is Katie Fox. That's Ecamm's director of marketing and also one of the forces behind the Ecamm fam. So it's a great community that offers not only tutorials, workshops, but some great onboarding camp. I've been part of one or two of those, and it's been really fun. So appreciate Katie's work helping us all feel confident in front of the camera, getting the most out of the tools. So together, they're here to tell us a little bit about what's new with Ecamm. Welcome to the show.
Hey, CJ.
Hey,
Such
Glenn.
a pleasure to be here.
Katie. So what's new? Tell us about, I think 4.5 just came out, and there's some exciting new things.
Yeah, we had a big product launch on Tuesday, and it went really well. We launched our dual mode feature, so Ecamm can now officially stream in horizontal and vertical at the same time. And people are loving it so far.
So that's happening all on device. You're just creating two individual separate streams. I'm gonna imagine that is starting to need some pretty heavy iron in terms of hardware to run some sort of encode like that.
It's really interesting. We're benefiting really benefiting from Apple, kind of standardizing on every Mac. We're Mac only, and every Mac just has pretty much the same chip nowadays. And these chips can do multiple simultaneous 1080 encodes without even breaking a sweat. So what we realized was to implement this feature, you can kind of envision it as the two canvases are just kind of like the same canvas side by side. We render this giant canvas that's almost 5,000 pixels wide, I think, if you're more than that if you're doing like a 4K horizontal and a 1080 vertical. And then we chop it up and then encode the horizontal and the vertical and send them out where they need to go, record them to the Mac. And it's pretty impressive how well it works. So the Macs can really encode without much trouble. You still can't do two 4K at the same time. That will make everything die pretty quickly. Well, I mean, you can. If you have like the newest Mac, you can do that. But
you need the M5.
We try to discourage
Ultra, Max, Pro, Plus.
Yeah. But this feature is so cool. So every scene you set up, you're designing the horizontal and the vertical at the same time. And as you're moving through your scenes, you just have a customized layout on the left for the horizontal, customized layout on the right for the vertical. And then since it's a first-class feature, we realized very quickly that like certain things need to be just synchronized automatically. So like say you bring in a movie overlay, like you're playing a little movie, and you put that overlay on the vertical side, we sync that up completely automatic, we don't double the audio or anything like that. And it just works beautifully. The idea is it's just all seamless and magical.
And so how did this...
That's our marketing lingo, seamless and magical.
Seamless and magical. So tell me, how did it come about? Like, what is the development of a new feature like this typically go? Do you have some big roadmap that you're working on, or is it more you're responding to the community? Because I understand you don't necessarily have a broadcast background. You have a software development background. And so this is, I think, a little bit... It speaks to the power and the impact of the community and how new features come about.
That is like a good way to describe it. My brother and I are the developers on this app, and although we do come from like an audio video background, not a production background, and we don't do a lot of like what you're doing now. So we do hear most of it from the community, and we try to kind of understand what people are looking for. This particular feature, it really, and this isn't typical, but this feature came up, really, I think it did come about because OBS has the plugin that lets you do the vertical, and a lot of the time when there's a feature that people are really relying on in other tools, we start hearing about it. And we looked at it and we said, well, we can do this a lot better than OBS does. And that always gets us excited about something. So we started developing it in October. It ended up taking a lot longer than we thought it would, but we finally got it out the door. A lot of the time, the features we add will be like, okay, can we add this in a way that is not going to make the software too complicated, not going to smash everyone's computer? Can we kind of do this in the right way? If there's a feature that we think is going to just be an absolute nightmare to support and implement, obviously we don't do that. And dual mode comes in right there in the middle. And we did actually say no Intel Macs for dual mode, but even that we're such softies, we backpedaled on that. So if you have,
but I imagine as you're pushing up against the limits of what a processor is able to handle, if you have a pre-2020 Intel Mac that is a laptop or something like that, the harder you try to push it, this goes for any software solution, the harder that you're trying to push that solution, and the higher CPU utilization, memory utilization, graphics utilization, all of a sudden that's where you're going to start to see dropouts, you're going to start to see breakups, you're going to start to see artifacting in that video. And we always say around here, you should shoot to have around 40 to 50% utilization and never exceed 60. And so I'm sure as you get into some of that older hardware, that's something that you're running into.
Yeah, we try to be clever about the utilization. As we, on a typical Ecamm broadcast, you could have, the CPU could be decoding a bunch of cameras. The GPU and the encoder could be doing like the horizontal now, the vertical. We also support automatically recording all the ISO videos. So then you're adding more real-time encodes for each camera, each Zoom guest. We try to be clever about, okay, that's enough guests. We're not doing any more ISOs, or we're only going to do the ISO recordings at 1080, even though they're coming in much larger. So our goal is to kind of make it so people can't ruin their own day by trying to do too much encoding, I guess you could say.
And then as you're setting up your scenes, when you're doing a dual mode, all the scenes are just tied to every time you switch a scene, there's a 16:9 and a 9:16 just side by side that you're having to just arrange with all your overlays separately. And then as you're making the switch, it's just simultaneous.
Yeah, it's basically behind the scenes. It's all just one big canvas that you're setting up for in each scene, and as you're moving through, you don't have to do any sort of like fancy linkage between the scenes. It's all just one scene. And then our other goal with dual mode was to make it simple to actually stream this out to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, wherever you're going. So as you're scheduling your broadcast in Ecamm, you can actually just say for Instagram, I want the tall one. For YouTube, I want vertical. I mean, if I want horizontal, or maybe I want both going out to YouTube. We handle that all completely automatically, and just and it's all tied in there. So you could sit down at another Mac with Ecamm. It's going to see all your scheduled events and know where to send the horizontal and where to send the vertical. And during the stream, record both to your Mac.
Katie, you were going to chime in on that one?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think what's really neat about this implementation of this feature is that unlike some of the other apps that are out there, be it OBS or Restream or StreamYard, this allows you to really fully customize and design each canvas. So we've seen a number of customers who will have a completely different design or use case for the horizontal recording or stream versus the vertical. So maybe they want a completely clean feed for the vertical, and they're using like Zoom Active Speaker to automatically switch between guests, and then their vertical video feed is done and ready to go. So it actually really simplifies a lot of the production work on the other end without sacrificing any of the control. So it's not just, we've seen like For example, in StreamYard, they're basically just automating it for you. So whatever you design in the horizontal canvas is just automatically applied on the vertical canvas, and you don't have any control about what that vertical canvas looks like or what that vertical output looks like. Whereas with Ecamm, you can design it however you want. And then, as you were saying, when you're actually going through the production, be it live streaming or recording, you're literally just able to click next on your Stream Deck or in your scenes to be able to flow through the content, and then you're done. So the act of repurposing or editing becomes significantly easier if you even do any editing at all, because in many cases it's just ready to go.
We've got a couple of questions already stacking up. We have a very interested and enthusiastic technical audience who's
Hi,
just champing at the bit to get some questions in here. So why don't we get into that first one? Alexander?
First question is coming in from Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. When customizing horizontal and vertical layouts independently with sync, what parts stay linked and what parts can diverge creatively?
Hey, great question. Pretty much everything is in general, everything is just separate. But the things that we sync automatically are the any movie overlay or full screen movie will be synced automatically. A multi-page PDF, if you're moving through a multi-page PDF, that'll sync itself. Any sort of countdown, like a stopwatch or a countdown to a time that you might want to pause and resume, will sync automatically. And is there anything? I'm trying to think if there's anything else.
Scrolling tickers.
I think those all be separate.
Okay. And comments, you can feature comments on screen, but that
going forward,
and choose where they go.
You can. Everything else is pretty much customizable. Going forward, we want to add a little more, like maybe a little more linkage to save time when you're setting up the show. Like, say you have like just a little. If you have someone's name in the corner, like you only want to change that in one place, not both. So there's more work to be done in that department.
And when you're setting up, if you have a show built already and you have your scenes, if you open that up in a project that has the ability to do dual mode, is it going to just clone the overlays that are in the horizontal over into the vertical side, or are you just basically opening it up and now you have a blank vertical canvas that you're dragging things onto?
You're more or less starting from scratch on the vertical side. We don't right now bring it over. The thought being like you kind of do have to think completely differently about that vertical canvas. Things like the background is going to come through if you have like a background design or something. But we do require, with this release at least, to redesign each scene one by one.
Right, because it's its own show. There's not if it were as easy as copy and paste, it would have just been done automatically.
We try to make it easy. I mean, you can like option drag each element over, quickly position it, and then you're good to go. That's usually enough. But
it doesn't take a long time.
Yeah, we've seen some interesting use of it, like with when you put a camera overlay in Ecamm, like you can apply a crop to it really easily. So, like say you have like a side by side shot in the horizontal, we've seen people kind of crop the camera so that like now those two heads are kind of like two separate little squares that don't even look like they're in the same room necessarily. In the vertical, I thought that was quite clever.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Next question.
All right, next question coming in from Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington. What were the big takeaways from the Ecamm camp?
And if you don't mind, we'd love just a quick, what is Creator Camp, and then what did some people get out of it, or what did you all take away from that?
Hi, Guy. Great question. Creator Camp, for those of you who don't know, is Ecamm's in-person unconference, I guess, for a good descriptor. We are about to head into year 4 of it. And it really is a bringing together of all of our customers and Ecamm curious folks for a time to learn and network and just spend time together. It's really workshop based. It's a little bit silly and a lot of fun, and always a really great time. I think we learn as much from that event as the campers and as the attendees do, because it really gives us the opportunity to be able to see what people are actually doing out in the field, how they're using Ecamm, what what things we might want to be able to bring into the roadmap. What else did I miss, Glenn?
I mean, face-to-face conversations with people who are actually using the app every day, it's just priceless. You can get more done in like a 10-second conversation than any sort of remote. I find it's great. If you can make it over to Creator Camp in the fall, or if you're in the UK area, just coming up in a few weeks, I wouldn't miss it.
And you also do some events that are remote. I took part in one, I think about a month ago, maybe 3 weeks, and had a lot of fun. Where did the inspiration for those come from?
Yeah, I mean, what's always been really interesting about our community is that because video and live streaming are so visual and so public, there's this desire for people to get better at it, and then there's this sort of word of mouth marketing that comes alongside it. So for us, it's always been really important to help our creators be as successful as possible, and when they're successful, we're successful, we all win. So we've for years now led a number of different workshops and trainings and live streams that really are sort of half an attempt to get more people to see the potential of Ecamm and what's possible, and then have to help our own existing audience just get better at a number of different skills. So the one you were talking about, CJ, we did recently was all about camera confidence and getting people sort of past that initial gut feeling of the camera is on and, oh, this is what I look like, and what do I say, and how do I kind of work through some of these challenges and then get really comfortable in this space. But we've done trainings on virtually every topic within the world of live streaming and video. So those are called our Leap into Video or Leap into Live Streaming workshops by and large, but we do a number of other ones as well.
Yeah, and one thing I like to say is that no matter what our business is, we're all in one way or another in the business of communication. And the soonest we can make the technology kind of fade away and be comfortable with it, and it's just in the background, and it's not taking up any headspace anymore, the sooner we get to connecting with people. And that's really what we're trying to do with all of this video stuff, is how do I get a sense of authenticity and a sense of connection with someone, even if they're not physically in the same space. We're trying to recreate that kind of immediacy that exists in that face-to-face communication. And sometimes we overcomplicate it and let the technology get in the way. And really, I appreciate my takeaway from that was from that leap into video was talking about how do we just get back to connecting as people. So I appreciate that. Next question.
Yeah. Yep.
This one's from John Foltz in Sealings Grove, Pennsylvania. Ecamm, please give us a companion module or an API. I would love working with the software, but this would be great.
Yeah, get in touch. We do actually have a remote control API to allow third parties to control the app locally. That's how our Stream Deck plugin actually works. So shoot us a message and we'll connect you with that exciting PDF file showing you how to do that. We've seen some pretty cool solutions come through using that API. And I apologize for not making it a little more obvious that it exists. But,
especially now that we have these tools, like we've seen some really incredible things built now that we have AI coding assistants to help us, whether it's Claude Code or Codex or something like that, to really create. And Chris Sabato, who's on the panel with us today, he has built some really amazing things that are like, okay, this is a very mission-specific tool that probably wouldn't have a market if we went out and tried to sell it. But it is an incredible solution to my very specific problem. So when we can find a way to innovate and create tools, again, I'm going to feed that PDF of all of your API notes and all of your documentation into a Claude Code or into a Codex, and then say, okay, here I'm trying to do this. What hooks are available in the API now? Then we take that and then are kind of pinging you on Discord or wherever else and saying, hey, have you thought about this? What about this? What about this? And then, kind of grows.
It's so cool and slightly disturbing to see customers who will now be like, you guys should do this in the app. I already implemented it, but you guys could probably do a lot better job. That is so cool. Like it's this moving into this era of essentially customizable software. Like imagine if like someone using Microsoft Word all day and, there's this button they always press, and imagine if they could just say, make that button bigger or put this button here, or maybe 2 buttons. Like I think we're entering this era where people are going to think about software completely differently. It's not the sort of thing made by wizards anymore. It's something that everyone can access, and it's going to be really exciting. We have had customers already saying, like, I just built this cool tool, sits on top of your app, interacts with it, and you don't even need an API now that some of these tools let you interact with the computer screen. Kind of a slippery slope, but so exciting.
Speaking of which, next question.
All right, this has come from Oliver Breidenbach, and he asks, Glenn, how much code in Ecamm is now written by AI?
We actually we're a little late to the game. We just started playing with Claude Code and Codex a couple months ago, when 5.3 kind of made it so it wasn't idiotic, and I don't know if you could put it in terms of a percentage, but it seems like it's really good at fixing little bugs and adding new sort of like standalone little features. But what we found amazing is just the context size in Codex 5.4. It's just absolutely enormous context, and we have a massive code base. Oliver, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. The code base is massive, and it's been there for 10 years, and this thing can go in and understand the project. It is so cool. It can, dive right in and start spelunking through the code and figuring out how it works, and it's amazing. But then, my brother and I, we're the main developers of the app, and I actually got yelled at from my brother the first time I tried to commit code that I didn't actually write or necessarily know what it did. I got a talking to. So our goal right now is, at least if Codex or Claude Code is writing some code, please at least know what it wrote and look at every line, and don't trust what it did just because it's Ecamm is it's a critical path app. It can't be doing crazy stuff that we don't know about. But it is super cool and exciting. What about you, Oliver? How's your what's your percentage at right now?
Yeah, same as you. We had to wait sort of like until the context window was big enough to fit at least the relevant sections of the app into the context, so that it doesn't fantasize about what's maybe in the rest of the code. So it's like, yeah, it's but the last couple of releases, there has been almost no code that has not been written by AI.
Nice.
And of course reviewed thoroughly, but it's so much better at just throwing stuff out there. We've now a beta release with an SRT source, and the SRT source has been completely written by Claude. So
Nice.
Yeah.
Alexander, you want to chime in?
Yeah, and a question about the development on the topic of AI too, because although I'm not a developer, I've worked with development teams. I've worked with software testing teams, and usually you have human beings that are writing these test scripts that are testing code, validating, verifying, and then of course there's also still the manual process of a human being, verifying, is this actually doing what it says it is on the tin? Is it stable? That kind of stuff. And I've heard from a lot of people that have been testing these platforms, these tools, that it looks like there's a serious future where these tools like Claude Code or whatever else is going to be coming down, that these tools could, or at least in its current stage, that they're actually pretty good at validating and verifying code. And do you think, from Ecamm's perspective, do you see yourselves using these tools as an alternative to just writing scripts to verify things, as far as the testing and QA side of things?
We're a little behind in that. We, since it is this complex Mac app, the unit testing and everything is a little bit, we haven't quite got on the bandwagon as far as AI. But yeah, it is quite cool when you ask it to write a script or something, and it also, without even having to be asked, creates sample data, generates unit tests, runs the unit tests, revises. What a cool world we live in. As far as actually being able to run Ecamm and see what's going on while it's running, and understand, did something just get slow, or is something not looking right? There's still a huge element of human testing in Ecamm. I'm sure it would happily offer to kind of try and help with that, but it's complex for sure.
Ronnie, you had a question also?
No, another question, but more like a thought or afterthought about using AI, like we do. More and more people are starting to use AI to develop, and of course, as these engines or models are getting more and more mature, it will probably also have more built-in security and testing for backdoors, etc. And one scary thing is that all these AIs that are using different repositories to learn how to code, those repositories can also be fed by malicious code. So to just have this competence to study the code that the AI is writing is really important. And I see a future where more and more apps getting coded by people that have good ideas, but absolutely no security in mind, and that is a scary thing. Just to remind you, a few days back, we had a company, an AI company, actually post all the source code officially, and they are scrambling to get that code off the net. So this is really dangerous, and these people, they are professionals, and even then, the entire source code was posted. So for everybody that watches this broadcast and are thinking of doing stuff, be really careful, really careful.
Yeah, the way I look at it, Ronnie, is like, right now we're kind of in like the awkward phase of this. Like, this is like, think about, the first couple of years of Facebook when we were all posting pictures of our meal. Like, we would take a picture of like scrambled eggs on a plate and be like, guys, I'm eating scrambled eggs. Like, that's the phase we're in now with AI coding, where we're just trying to figure out the ropes. And the next couple of years, I feel like it's just going to get better and better, to the point where it is, not, your entry-level coder anymore. It's a chief engineer coding. Like, my brother and I have this running joke now, like, we fix a bug with AI versus fixing it by hand. You know what? I'm not sure which one is better. Just from the anecdotal evidence, I'm not sure I would have done a better job. I obviously would have taken longer. So, maybe some sort of hybrid approach is best, because it's doing great. But security-wise, I don't think that I want that stuff touching my security just yet.
I know that we were going to have this only be a couple minutes, but it seems we've got a lot stacking up. Are you guys okay to stick around for a couple minutes longer?
Bring it on.
Awesome. Let's dive into the next question.
All right, next question is coming up from Douglas Carmichael. What is the unique selling proposition of Ecamm over similar competing products?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I mean, it's powerful enough that you can create broadcast level quality productions, but simple enough that someone with no video background can come in and be able to just drag and drop and get up and running. So it's and affordable enough that anyone can get started really easily. I think we're one of the most affordable tools on the market and one of the easiest to use without sacrificing any of the quality and production ability.
I don't think I need to add anything to that. That was
without trying to step on a co-founder and director of marketing here for a company. Let me try and define this. No, the thought that came to mind reading the question is it's kind of got a in the Mac sense a for the rest of us kind of vibe to it, where there's something that's really approachable to where even within my company we're running town halls using Ecamm, and I was able to take technically savvy but not broadcast savvy people and have them pick up on it very quickly, and that was it was a kind of a democratizing thing.
That was like the premise since day one of the Ecamm app was that sort of Apple-esque approach to doing a broadcast. Like from day one, it was like maybe they can do a live stream without knowing the word stream key, or adding that extra layer of abstraction. Whether we have been true to that, over the years, I'm not sure. As the app gets more and more complicated and feature rich, we still try and strike that balance. And I hope we're doing a good job. But that was the original premise of the app, was make it simple.
Next question.
Right, this one's from Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. If you had to pick between streaming providers, YouTube, Facebook, Vimeo, Restream, do you have a preference, or do you see fewer complaints for any particular delivery solutions? And where do most issues originate? User, hardware, software, bandwidth?
Interesting.
Good question.
From my perspective, Katie, right? I mean, like, YouTube is where it's at. Like, that's where the audience is. They are constantly innovating and improving everything. I think YouTube is where it's at, and then maybe you can chime in, Katie, on the mobile aspect of that.
YouTube is definitely a powerhouse in that they're, like, as you said, they're innovating, but they're innovating in a way that's not breaking things or making it more complex or complicated for their user, which I think is really important, particularly for Ecamm customers, who many of them do not come from a broadcast background and are, they have content and they have a mission and a goal that they're trying to meet with video and with live streaming, and YouTube just makes it easy and accessible and affordable for them. The second half of the question was about where the pain points are, where I feel like we have such a wide user base that it depends on the user. I think a lot of people who are brand new and jumping into the space have a really hard time with it feeling really big. They need to think through, like, what hardware they need in addition to how to use the software. So there can certainly be a lot of moments of, potential moments of frustration or, the time it takes to kind of get up and running in that space. But that is why a group like the Ecamm fam, our Ecamm community, is so valuable, in that you have people from all backgrounds and all experience levels and all industries coming together to offer support and recommendations, particularly when it comes to things like everything you mentioned in that list, right? So whether it's like all of those pain points or points of failure can be easily discussed and solved really quickly in a community where everyone is actively using all kinds of different things from all kinds of different backgrounds. So we are lucky that the community addresses a lot of those issues well before they ever make it back to Glen or to our support team. They're like, you have a bad cable, or that's not the right camera.
My favorite post on the communities and the forums is like when someone will have this big, long post about needing solving some sort of issue, and I start reading and go, oh, this isn't even a technical issue. I can great.
Yeah. Next question.
This one's from Florence Donnell in Silver Spring, Maryland. In dual mode, you can record up to 1080p in vertical. Any ideas cooking to move to vertical recording at 4K on the docket?
Ooh, good.
I was going to wait and see if anyone asked for it.
Here it is, Glenn. Someone's asked for
because
it.
Remember at the beginning of the show, I mentioned how this is just one giant canvas we're rendering. Doing the horizontal and the vertical 4K gets really, really big. And then also we do rely on these real-time encoders on the Mac. So it may be a no-go from the hardware standpoint. And
I would also chime in and say, like, I'm not sure how worth it is for the amount of like bandwidth or power required to get there. Like in many cases, those vertical feeds are going out, on your phone. A lot of the different platforms don't allow for 4K anyway. So it'll be interesting to see sort of where the spaces go. It's not
let's ask the panel here, Katie.
Yeah.
What would this be for? What would this 4K vertical be for?
That's a good question. Yeah.
I think if you have one of those TVs that when you hit a button and then the mount on the background actually physically rotates it.
You turn it,
and then you turn it on. It is most of the time, I feel like when people are watching a vertical video, it's because it's in a Reels or a TikTok or some sort of short YouTube shorts, like it's on the thing that's in your hands. And even the biggest of those phones are, I think, going to benefit more from a higher frame rate than they would from a higher resolution, just because in terms of immediacy and realness. I don't know if anyone else has a differing opinion on that, but that's I noticed it just last week. I was in Asia for business, and I was on the subway in Seoul, and everybody was watching something on their phone. It was, and I didn't have my phone. I had just had my watch, and so I thought it was really funny because I'm just standing there looking around, and meanwhile, everybody else is.
Wow.
But again, everyone is watching on a phone that you can fit in your hand, and so it's like, what would I be getting at the higher resolution? Can it do 1080-60?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, we people doing that. I'm almost 100% sure YouTube supports vertical 4K. But
YouTube
I can't imagine anyone would be seriously watching that in 4K. But one of the other use cases for dual mode is, you're streaming out horizontal, but just recording the tall one for later when you're sending it to something that was going to chop it up and make little reels and social posts. So I think users might appreciate having that vertical recording to chop up later.
Mm-hmm.
Next question.
All right, Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington asks, using vMix for our Saturday show live stream, we can't get our vertical to be a short. What is the secret sauce that makes a short long?
This is like how it shows up on YouTube?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not really sure I know the answer to that.
I can't remember there is a threshold that, of course, at this moment I can't remember what it is. It is a time limit. For a while, it was under 60 seconds would automatically become a short, but I feel like they've extended it, and I don't remember what that exact time is. So I apologize. I don't know the answer to this one, but a quick search will probably get you there. But it has to do with the time limit. So it has to do with the format, it being vertical, and then the time limit.
Next question.
Chris Fenwick in Emeraldville, California asks, can you explain your integration with Zoom and Zoom ISO? If I'm using Ecamm, do I need to also pay for Zoom ISO? I already have a 1080p Zoom account.
You do not need Zoom ISO, I hope. That was our goal with the
I actually went and read your facts, and I should have deleted the question. But it's good that we discussed it.
One thing that we do not do in Ecamm is support sending the Zoom guests out as NDI feeds. So if you still need to do that,
but you don't need to because you're doing
the idea. The idea with Ecamm for Zoom is that it's fully integrated, so you don't need to be doing that. It's bringing in those guests completely automatically. They just show up as camera sources. We handle the video, we handle the audio, and if you have 1080 support, we bring in that 1080, and it looks absolutely gorgeous.
Oh, I just thought of something. So I can open up my Zoom client. I can start my Zoom meeting. In that Zoom meeting, my camera is going to look just like this. I then launch Ecamm, and I assume I log into that meeting. And in the Ecamm window, I can cut and composite and picture and do all the fancy. And the guest does or doesn't have to see all of that.
It's
Does the Ecamm actually shows up as a guest in the window? Do we have time? Can we just fire this baby up and let you click around it?
The way we did Ecamm for Zoom is it actually is like a whole copy of Zoom inside Ecamm. So you don't actually have to run the Zoom app on your Mac at all. It's completely contained within Ecamm, and then it joins the meeting, and then you can actually decide whether or not your camera is the Ecamm output or just some random camera that you pick, just like the same way you do it in Zoom.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, does the Ecamm output, presumably the 16.9, does it always show up in the meeting, or can I say, don't show this confusing switched input to my guest who's otherwise just sitting in a Zoom meeting?
Yeah, if you don't want your
switched
your output coming out as your camera source, you can just change your camera source in the Zoom meeting window. Like just the same as I would go down to the bottom of this Zoom window and pick a new camera, you could pick a different one.
Okay.
Now,
cool.
The one thing that I've done is I've had all of the participants in the meeting join in Ecamm for Zoom. So that's in client number 1. And then I've had the Ecamm virtual camera join a webinar as an output so that all of the webinar attendees only see the switched version, only see the cut version. So it's like I have one room that is for the contributors, and then I have the output of that room is being routed to the, vanilla Zoom, which is then going out to webinar. Ronnie, you had a comment?
Yeah, just want to add additional info to Chris. As you might know, you should, at your age, be using enhanced media. And that gives you not only 60 frames per second, but also access to all the tools that Liminal has been developing for years for us.
Yes, very excited. We like the enhanced media add-on for Zoom now includes access to all the Liminal tools, which is all the more reason to hop on besides the better bit rate and 1080. Next question.
I didn't know that. That's a cool. That's money. Getting your money's worth for sure. There.
Yeah.
And it looks a lot better too at 12
looks really
megabits
good.
per second. Oliver Breidenbach is asking, what requirements are there for a YouTube account to get the dual streaming mode? If I go to live stream, I only get the auto setting, not a second RTMP.
We actually the dual feature that we have in Ecamm, where you can say I want to go horizontal and vertical to YouTube at the same time, is not actually using YouTube's special feature at all. It's literally just generating a horizontal broadcast and a vertical broadcast. And the downside there is that you won't share the same live chat. From what I understand, YouTube is planning a first class feature that will support this, but it's not there yet. I know they rolled out like a sort of like a dual mode feature late 2025, I think, which just turned out to be cropping And everyone was like, that's not what we wanted at all. So I think they kind of went back to the drawing board and are working on something, on better support for that. But as it is right now, if you do that in Ecamm, it's just going to create two broadcasts. Like we'll pull in the comments from both broadcasts, but the people chatting on the tall one and the people chatting in the horizontal one aren't sharing. They're not sharing a chat room. So it's kind of a bummer.
Oliver, you wanted to add on to that?
Yeah, that explains a lot. Yeah. Actually, the documentation, the YouTube documentation says that there should be a second RTMP key that you can pick from the pop-up menu, and it's not there. So it may be something that they're working on. And I'm I'm just sort of happy to hear that you don't have any secret sauce.
I haven't actually. I haven't seen that in. Is there an update to the docs?
Yeah, I looked for dual mode streaming, dual mode streaming, and the dual mode streaming actually says you can get two RTMP keys, and but it also says that this is not available for everyone.
Usually I feel like when YouTube is rolling out a feature, they give it to the special people to try. It's a gradual rollout. And I figured that they would probably roll it out as soon as we rolled out our own method of doing it, so that we would have to rewrite all the code again. So that's probably, now that version 4.5 is released, Oliver, I'm sure they'll roll out their way of doing it. So we
just in time for you to rewrite your code.
Yeah, exactly.
Next question.
This one's from Josh Kaufman in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Smart multi-platform streaming sounds deceptively powerful. Can you explain what Ecamm is doing behind the scenes when platforms want different resolutions?
Yeah, the previous to version 4.5, we were just doing one encode, and so you had to kind of do a lowest common denominator thing there, where if a certain platform could only handle 720 or could only handle 1080, you'd have to go down to that lowest resolution. Now, Ecamm's going to look at all your multi-streaming destinations. So say you're streaming in 4K, that's going to go out to YouTube. But if it sees, this person's also going out to Instagram, it's going to basically spin up another real-time encoder and encode a 1080 version for Instagram. If it sees, this person's going to Amazon Live, and they need 720 for that, automatically encode in 720. So it's taking advantage of these Macs just getting faster and faster, and doing multiple encodes automatically.
Hey, if you're finding office hours valuable, if we're helping you solve problems, if we're helping you discover new tools, we encourage you to give some of that value back. You can volunteer on the show and around the show, keeping us moving forward. Of course, you can like and subscribe to YouTube, and you can contribute to helping us financially by going to officehours.global/donate. And there you can set up a one-time, set up a monthly, set up however you like. We appreciate your help in keeping this running and keeping us bringing the latest and greatest to you. Again, that's officehours.global/donate. Next question.
This is one of my questions. How has Mac development been since the early Ecamm days? Apple's software quality has gone downhill for the last decade. Production people often stay one or two operating system versions behind. Have any frameworks like Core Audio and Video been challenging?
Core Audio. Sorry. Go ahead, Glenn.
I wish my brother was here to comment on this, because he usually does more of the low-level audio and video code. It is disappointing, and ironically, we are those guys that stay a couple of versions behind, because we need to make sure our app is going to build properly. So obviously we can't hop on the latest release. So I'm usually one release behind, and Ken is usually two releases behind, which drives me crazy. But it also helps us test everything. It hasn't been great, to answer your question. It's really annoying when Apple breaks stuff on us and it doesn't seem like they do enough testing of the new operating systems. And I can't blame them. I mean, people do a lot of things on computers, and you can't try everything. But some of the stuff they've added, like all the stuff that shows up in that little the little green camera menu at the top of the screen, you know, like portrait, reactions, background, like, oh my God, every time. Wait, I don't think the audience saw that.
Sorry, I had to, just for the comment, I had to turn on reactions so everybody could see my best confetti face, just for you. That's
perfect.
Like
custom.
Every time Apple touches that little green menu, they never try like actual studio software. They're just testing it with like FaceTime and that's it. So like there'll be bugs like, did you try it with two cameras being turned on at the same time? Or did you try 4K? Did you try, 60 frames per second? So they're just constantly breaking things there.
And then while you're trying to arguably push the limits of what the software is designed for, making it accessible to a certain consumer level, and then you're trying to push the edge of what you can do to try to make more of a production out of it. Now all of a sudden, if Ecamm has a helper that's showing up as a different instance than the main app, I'm not sure if that's how it's doing it, but that was one instance where, okay, all of those reactions in Portrait and Studio Light all have to be done on a per app basis. So your users think they've disabled it at a system level, when in reality they've disabled it only at a per app level, and they've done it for Zoom, but not Ecamm for Zoom, or not Ecamm, one of those things. And so it becomes a moving target from a support perspective.
Yeah, it is super confusing when people are having a serious conversation on a live stream, and they're talking about peace in the Middle East, and then suddenly some like balloons start floating up on the screen, and we get blamed for it.
Yeah, and you've someone who talks with their hands and is expressive.
Yeah,
Guilty.
Hello, and then all of a sudden, you've things going on all over the place.
Yeah. The other thing that we face with the new Mac OS releases is performance. Any developer is guilty of saying, the Mac is faster, so maybe we don't have to pay as much attention to performance. We can push this thing harder. We can have it do more things, liquid glass, blah, blah, blah. And then what they don't realize is, people that are already pushing the Mac to its limits are not going to be happy, because now the Mac is doing more stuff. So
in other words, the baseline that the operating system needs to run to run is taking a bigger slice of the pie. So now you as a developer have less to grab. Is that accurate?
I think there's two components. It's the Mac doing more, like the baseline, but also coding things less efficiently. So, or not paying as much attention to efficiency or memory use. Whenever a new Mac OS comes out, we see things go slower behind the scenes, whether it's the video pipeline or just general, memory management. Usually they can sort it out, but it is painful now whenever a new Mac OS comes out.
Sorry, go ahead.
We're still seeing people upgrading to Tahoe and saying, well, now it's slower. And that's just a terrible experience.
Speaking of performance, I want to go on to the next question.
This one is from Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington. Is the Mac Neo okay?
This is a hot topic around the office.
Not for Ecamm, no.
It's not. It's such a cool concept, but it's just not for Ecamm. Sorry. Our original baseline, even before the Mac Neo came out, was your Mac should have a fan, because it's just the way modern CPUs are designed. Like they can do these bursts of power is what they're designed for. Essentially, they'll say, "Oh, I'm needed. I'll increase my clock speed and I'll do something, and then hopefully in a few seconds I'll be done doing that thing." But any sort of sustained use of the processor is not recommended for those fanless Macs.
And it's one of those things where even if the even if the baseline performance, you spoke about still supporting some Intel Macs or some M series chips that maybe came out, M1s that came out right out of the gate in 2020. It really does come down to, okay, if the Mac has kind of intermittent performance, or is it going to have sustained performance? And that's where anything that's going to be subject to thermal throttling is what is going to drive it. So when you're looking at comparing specs on whether it's a MacBook Neo or an older Mac that you have, you want to look at the benchmarks for video encodes. Because essentially, if you're going to be doing your show and you're going to be trying to put out a stream, you're going to have that sustained video encode for the duration of the show, in addition to, if you bring in Zoom guests, managing a Zoom meeting, and all of that has to go through RAM. And what sorts of kind of performance hits is that going to take? Anyway, that's it's one of those. Yeah.
Thermal throttling
hard
is hard.
because-
It's hard to describe. It's hard to explain thermal throttling to people because they think you're making it up. It just sounds like you're making some horrible excuse, like, oh, your computer got hot and that made it slow down. It's like,
Your
no,
dilithium crystals are overheating.
It's
like
also
we explain it to people like, your computer is trying not to melt. It's doing its best to not melt.
look at it not melting. It's also really difficult because, again, we have a fairly large portion of our customer base who are not video production people. They're new into this space, and Apple has this wonderful history of you can keep your Mac for forever. It still works. It still works well. You blink and you don't realize how old your computer is. And so I feel like there's this understanding of but it's still working. And in many cases, Ecamm is still running on it until it's not. And that's really hard, I think, for people to understand because they've made this investment. It was a lot of money 5 years ago. It feels like it's gone by in the blink of an eye, and they haven't had any problems. But then every time new features come out, they want to try the newest, coolest thing. And I think that's really difficult to explain to people is that it's both technical and also there's a perception of, it's always worked. Why is it not working now? Or, why does this one new feature take up so much of my computer? Why have I always been able to do it? Now it's not. So there's a lot of Ecamm broke this, and it really comes down to you're on an Intel Mac, and it's fine if you're just doing, the bare minimum as far as streaming, but it is different, as you were saying, if you add in all of the bells and whistles and you're dropping in all the different features, you are taking your Mac to a level it can't handle at that point.
Chris?
Yeah, the thing I always say to people is your computer does not go obsolete. You have changed your idea of what you want your computer to do.
Yes, exactly.
And the thing with a software switching package like you have or like Oliver has or OBS is it's very easy to just keep saying, and create me a new scene, and create me another thing, and then add another speaker, and all of a sudden it just blows up. But there was no hardware limit. Alex Lindsay, the founder of Office Hours, he wants to switch everything on physical hardware, and it's great because you have 8 buttons on that switcher, and you cannot plug in 9 things. You're done. You're limited by the number of buttons you have. Whereas something like Ecamm or Mimo or whatever, you can just say, hey, let's make another one. And all of a sudden it overheats, melts down and stops doing
I don't know if
things.
I don't know if you ever read the great tome, the great book, If You Give a Moose a Muffin, or If You Give a Mouse a Cookie, or If You Give a Pig a Pancake. It's a great series, but if you give a Mac a software switcher is really what it comes down to, because then they're going to want to add another, and an overlay, and another input, and one of these, one of those.
That is perfect. That's perfect.
Ecamm is we are the absolute worst for compatibility. The rest of the company hates it, but Ken and I are just we don't want to make anyone sad.
That just means we're making people sad, Glenn. Someone's making someone sad.
They just convinced us to finally increase the recommended Mac year in our support documents, because we looked at it and it still said 2015 or newer. And we were like, okay, how about 2020 or newer? We'll update it. But even still, there are Ecamm users who bought these extraordinarily expensive Intel Macs in 2019 and 2020. And honestly, they're really good computers. I mean, they were the absolute peak of those horrible Intel chips, and they're not upgrading anytime soon. So there are Intel Macs that can run Ecamm really well. They were really expensive.
We just hit the top of the hour, but I think we can get to the last question pretty succinctly. Alexander?
Okay, thank you. This one is from me. Last question. What's the graphic strategy for 9x16? I'd love to do a simultaneous 9x16 stream, but I have to build a new pipeline with new lower thirds as none of mine are designed for that narrow format. I would have to have 2 different lower third sets.
Yeah. I think it comes down to like what your overall strategy is. We're seeing a lot of users who are keeping their vertical stream fairly minimal because you have a pretty limited space, especially depending on what platforms you're going out to. Like Ken and Glenn have designed this overlay that sits over that actually shows like what your space is, and it's way smaller than what you even think. It's like very, very, very tiny. So you might not want a lower third on your vertical stream or your vertical recording. You might not want, all of the cool things that you have within your horizontal video. So I think it comes down to not thinking through, I'm just going to duplicate this and make it work on vertical, and thinking through actually what your use case is for your vertical video. Are you using it to chop up and feed like a repurposing social media strategy? Or are you, is your live audience in that vertical space, in which case you might need to think about what that looks like and what that experience is like. Because the platforms do eat up a lot of that vertical space, which is already much smaller than what you have in the horizontal platform. So I think different strategy entirely. I would think about lower thirds in what purpose are they serving in the vertical space, and is it worth it? And how can you make them visible and functional in that very, very limited space?
Katie, Glenn, where can we learn more about Ecamm or keep up to date with what's going on? What would you like to? Anything you'd like to plug?
Well, you can certainly swing over to our website. If you go to ecamm.com/dual mode, you'll get all the details on this new feature, and you can give it a try. We're more than happy to reset your trial. It's a pro level feature, so if you're sitting on standard, we're happy to let you give it a try again. And if you're brand new, you can get a trial there as well.
I would recommend the new video series we just rolled out this week, a series of tutorials hosted by Jill. They're great.
Yeah, those are on our YouTube channel.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming in. We had a ton of questions and a ton of enthusiasm, so we ended up taking up the whole show, but our producers drive the show, so thank you all for sticking around, and thank you to our producers for asking such great questions while we had some guests in the house. We appreciate that. Thank you to our panel for being here to add to the conversation and to bring your unique perspective. Everybody's got a little bit different walk of life, different set of lenses through which we like to view things, and there's no one of us that's as smart of all of us. That's what I like to say. Finally, thank you to our back-end crew who made sure that we all got in here today, got everybody tech-checked, got everybody looking and sounding great, and keeping us organized, bringing in great guests like our friends at Ecamm. If we would have had to do this in person today, that would be the Tlaloc Traversal, and the Tlaloc Traversal for episode 2201 is 44,000 miles. That's 70,000 kilometers, 345 million bananas for scale. All right, we'll see you in After Hours. Thank you so much. That was so fun.
Oh, thank you. What a pleasure.
Good show.
Really appreciate you sticking around for the whole hour.
Oh, gosh. I'm so thrilled that there were that many questions. That's great.
I would love to watch you guys just open up the software, build a show. I think you should do like a lab or something sometime.
That would be fun. Yeah.
And we have those, we sometimes will do labs in our After Hours, which is just our internal community. We kind of have a meeting that's up all the time that we all can watch. Sometimes we've done labs and workshops and then posted it as a VOD later. And then sometimes it's just, you got to be there kind of a thing. So if you're open to it, I'm sure there would be a ton of interest.
Our mics are still hot. My Jill is messaging and saying that people can still hear what we're saying right now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
We know.
Just checking. Hello, everyone listening.
The post-credit banter.
Perfect. Well, hi, Jill. Thanks
teasing
for listening.
the upcoming show.
Yeah, no, we would love to do something like that. I think that would be a lot of fun.